All right. Exercise modality. Which is best? Which is best? So cardiovascular exercise is any aerobic or endurance exercise that uses oxygen as a primary source of energy. And strength training is resistance exercise that is intended to improve muscular strength and endurance. Now, which one's better? So I mentioned earlier that the study was done to assess kind of which produced the best results, kind of cardio or strength training, right? And the meta-analysis showed that low impact exercise like progressive strength training and something like yoga was a lot more effective in helping people feel better than cardio. And I'll tell you why. This is not a negative rant on cardio. I support cardio, but cardio is more likely to elicit a cortisol response. And so cortisol is our stress hormone. And cortisol is actually really helpful for us. It helps us wake up in the morning. It helps us be awake during the day. But when you have cortisol that lingers and stays in the body, that's when we start to get that inflammatory response, right? And so cardio is a lot more likely to elicit an inflammatory cortisol response from the body. And so you're more likely to get more exercise-induced flare-ups if you are just strictly on a cardio regimen, right? So looking at all of you that just go to the treadmill every time, definitely looking at all, yeah, we got to change it up, right? We have to implement some resistance training. And even if it's just twice a week, you decrease that cardio just 2 days and instead implement something a little bit slower, a little bit more progressive, like strength training. It's going to help your body recover. It's going to help your body not produce as much cortisol. It's going to help your body not allow that cortisol to linger as much. But even with all that said, exercise is very nuanced, and there's a lot of factors to consider when it comes to determining what's going to be best. And what we're going to talk about next is intensity versus consistency. And I will go ahead and tell you the answer that consistency always wins. So which is best between cardio and strength training? A combination of both with a little bit more dose of the one that you prefer, right? Because at the end of the day, if you just don't like it, you're not going to do it. So I really love encouraging people to find different types of exercise that they enjoy, right? It doesn't have to just be running, and it doesn't just have to be weightlifting. Walking is a wonderful place to start, right? Any kind of yoga, like look up videos on YouTube, join a rock climbing gym, go dancing, right? There's so many forms of movement and exercise, and just all the different ways that you can move the body are just incredible. And so there's no shortage of options. You just kind of have to find what works for you. And with anything, it is trial and error. You know, if you start something and you decide you didn't like it, you're not a failure. You just try something new. It's trial and error. So which is best? A combination of both with a little bit more of the one that you like the most, because you're going to do it more often. So sorry, it was not a rocket science answer, but that is reality. We don't have to make exercise complicated. Do the one that you like. All right. Intensity versus consistency, which has the biggest payoff? Okay. So let's talk about intensity for a second. It's a measure of the amount of effort put into a single event. Okay. So with intensity, intensity kind of it's good to the extent of like you understand your own intensity levels. Like, do you understand what 100%, like going 100% feels like? Do you understand what 70% feels like? Do you understand what 30% feels like, right? And some people just don't, right? Some people are under the impression that you have to go 100% all the time. And that is not good. It's not good for your body. It's not good for your mental health. And some of us are under the impression that if I can't go 100%, then I'm not going to go at all, right? Some of us often feel that way. It's like, oh, I'm really tired today and I'm just not going to give it 100%. So like, what's the point, right? I told you what the point is, right? We are making deposits into our cognitive 401k and we are helping our immune system. So think of exercise as like a tool. Think of exercise as like a tool. You know, I said that exercise is very much good stress, right? And exercise can be like this kind of like container of good stress. And we give that little container of good stress to our immune system. And then our immune system is like, okay, we're exercising, I feel stressed, but then we're done with our workout and it's over in 30 minutes, right? And then our body's like, oh, okay, that wasn't so bad. Like we're done, we feel good, this is nice, right? And so the wonderful thing about our brain is that no matter what the source of the stress, whether it's from exercise or some rabid dog is chasing us down the street, I don't know. Our brain registers that as stress. And when you exercise in little bouts, like little doses, right, in those 30-minute bouts, you know, a couple times a week, our brain remembers that as like, guys, calm down. We know how to do this. We know how to assess this situation. And then your body doesn't have to go into a flare up every time you experience stress. And so exercise is really helpful at making your immune system more efficient at handling stress, right? But with intensity, it's really important to really understand how your body responds to intensity, right? And how it responds to consistency as well. So consistency is that repetition of effort. So intensity is the measure of the amount in a single event, whereas consistency is the repetition of that effort. So think of like intensity, like your 2 visits to the dentist each year, right? Ideally, we go every 6 months, but you don't just go to the dentist twice a year and that's it, right? No, we brush our teeth in between, hopefully, right? Twice a day. We brush our teeth, and that is the consistency. And so it's very, very similar. We maybe have all experienced this at one point. Like we go to the gym and like, I haven't gone in weeks. I need to go in and hit it hard, right? And then what happens? Emmett's like, that's me, dog. Yeah. Same here, right? I've experienced that too. Like, I just haven't worked out in like a week. And so I really need to hit it hard. I need to work off, you know, this food I just ate, you know, whatever it is. We go in, we go at 110%. And what happens? We're in bed the next day. We're in bed for like a week. We have a flare up, right? Because we think that we need to go 100%. And our bodies are not designed to go 100% all the time. There's a time and place for that, but we have to first make sure that we find an amount of effort that is repetitive, that you can maintain for a significant amount of time. So when that day comes that you are, you know, well conditioned to say, I'm going to go 110% today, you don't end up in bed the next day, right? And so like I said earlier, when I was talking about the different like modalities and, you know, people or the barriers, right? People sign up for this really intense exercise program. They get 2 weeks in and you're burnt out. You're tired, you're hurting, you can't move. Whereas if you find something that's a little bit lower intensity that you can maintain for a longer amount of time, you're going to be more likely to stick to that. Does that make sense to everyone? Yeah. So consistency is going to win over intensity. Now, I'm not saying you can't have a high intensity workout. You absolutely can, but you want to be able to find an kind of a a percentage of that 100% that you can maintain for a long period of time. And I'm a big fan of varying those intensities. So some days I'm at 75%, some days I kind of go at 30% just to more like explore, right? Explore of like, I'm trying something new. What does this feel like? And it's good. It's good to kind of vary those intensities, but going 100% every single day is not sustainable. And it's definitely not sustainable for those of us with autoimmune disease, because we need to allow our body to recover. We need to allow our body to bring those inflammatory levels down. That flare up is more of a messenger saying like, hey, we need to rest. Speaking of recovery, two types of recovery: active recovery and passive recovery. So active recovery are kind of some applications that help your body reduce inflammation, increase blood flow, and repair those muscles. And these are things that you implement, right? So you practice some breath work, you practice some mobility, stretching, yoga, soft tissue work, anything with like a lacrosse ball or like a massage or a foam roller are things that you implement. And then passive recovery are those restorative processes that you kind of implement, but they sort of can take care of your body. So things like sleep, right? We physically get into bed, but while we're sleeping, there's this recovery process kind of happening for us. Our metabolism, right? It's a restorative process that is always working, especially if we feed it anti-inflammatory foods. And then our hydration, making sure that we're staying hydrated. Our bodies are like 70%, 75% water. So it's important to maintain those hydration levels because that water is there for a reason.